I read somewhere that you got to a point where your standard pre-show ritual slash habit, I don't know, was a shot of Jameson, a beer, and a bump of Coke.
Yes, that was only when I was doing a late show, in fairness. Not at 8 p.m.
Usually, if you are recovering from drug or alcohol addiction, the conventional advice would tell you to avoid going to bars or places where you used to use. But that's not so easy if you're a comedian like Andrew Barr. This month, he is recording his debut comedy special, which is called The 13th Hour, and he's doing it immediately after running for 12 hours straight on a treadmill. Just let that sink in for a second. Running for 12 hours straight, then talking into a microphone, performing for an audience right away. The show is happening at Comedy Bar East in Toronto. All funds raised will go to the rehab center that helped Andrew turn his life around. Andrew Barr is with me in the Q studio to tell us more. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Really good. So happy to have you here. This is, boy, you've got a story, and I can't wait to help you tell it.
I'm excited to be here.
So there are a lot of ways that you could have supported this rehab center whose efforts in your life you really appreciated. Why are you putting yourself through this?
Sort of a curiosity, I guess. Also, like the whole day is a metaphor.
How so?
So the treadmill is addiction, right? You're kind of stuck in one place. You can't move forward. You're doing the same thing over and over again. Maybe it seems like fun at first, but slowly this thing is breaking you down, and it's only getting harder and harder to do the same thing that you were doing. And then eventually you have to admit that I can't beat this machine. You just have to stop. You have to get off of it. So that's part of the story that I'm trying to tell. The audience will arrive towards the end of the 12 hours, and the audience arriving is kind of like an intervention, basically, a group of caring individuals coming to support you. And then me walking off the treadmill and towards the audience is like a return to community.
Okay, that is a beautiful metaphor. It's grueling to go through. It's lovely to describe. It's going to be grueling and extraordinary to go through.
Absolutely. That metaphor might cost me my knees, but I'm gonna go for it.
But just to be clear, it's only just at the tail end of these 12 hours of running that the audience actually shows up, right? Tell me how this works, because the treadmill is on stage at the comedy club, but the first 11 and a half hours or whatever, there's no one there.
Yeah, I was just not willing to ask people to sit through a whole 12 hours of me running. So the actual live performance is after the 12 hours, and so the audience will catch the tail end of the run and then the show. But during the day, we will be live streaming while I'm running on the treadmill. We're going to put a couch next to the treadmill, and I'm going to have 2 comedians per hour coming in and basically podcasting. They're going to chill out on the couch. I'm going to leave like a bowl of topics there. They're going to riff and have fun while I'm just...
What's their piece in the metaphor? What would you call them?
The way that I think it relates to addiction is that I'll be there with my friends, but I won't be able to interact with them and engage with them in the way that I would like to, because I will be stuck on this thing, and I will have to be running, and I'll have to be focused on my breathing. So I won't be able to contribute to this sort of social environment in the way that I would like, which is kind of similar to doing drugs, because often when you're out, you're not really focused on what other people are saying. You're just kind of thinking about when you're going to slip into the bathroom for your next bump or whatever, what have you. So I'll be there, but I won't really be as present as I would like to be.
And whatever you're going through on that treadmill, they can only help you so much from afar, shouting jokes and whatever.
Absolutely.
You really have to finish this journey or whatever on your own.
For sure.
And then the audience as intervention. Can you unpack that a little?
It's a group of people showing up, and they're there for me. They're there for the comedy that I'm going to do. They're there to see me do the thing that I'm good at. They're not there to watch me run on a treadmill, right? Like, it's sort of them arriving is them being like, hey, you can stop doing that horrible thing that you're doing to yourself now and get back to doing, what's the thing that you're good at. Not that I'm not good at running. I'm actually quite excellent at it. But
yes, I would hope.
yeah,
Have you
right?
run a lot before? I mean,
Yes, I've been training since January, and I did running before that, but yeah, I've been training hard since January, all the time. It's actually, I'm excited to stop. It's funny. I've planned this whole event to help the rehab center that I went to and to be like a positive example of sobriety and stuff. But also, it's funny because the training for it has been quite isolating. And one of the important parts of sobriety is community. But I've been like alone on a treadmill for most of the year. So I'm pretty excited to be done with it because it is kind of a solo effort getting ready.
Well, and all the more, I think, appreciation you'll have for that audience when they're there. I don't know how you're going to have any energy to entertain them, but boy, are you going to be glad to be off that treadmill and with them.
Yes, I will be so excited to be off the treadmill. And yeah, my energy level, one thing I'm curious about with the event is, apart from the addiction, this is just something that I'm curious about, is to what extent can an audience revive a performer? Because oftentimes when you're performing, or every time you're performing, really, you're feeding off the energy from the crowd, right? I've been doing stand-up for around 15 years. I've done so many shows where I'm sick, I'm coughing, I'm sneezing, I don't really want to be there. You get up on stage in front of people, it all goes away. Adrenaline takes over, the energy from the crowd takes over, and all of a sudden you're not sick for those 20 minutes, and then you got off stage and you're sick again. So I'm really curious what the edge of that is. To what extent
You're really testing that
can
theory.
people bring me back?
That's right.
The audience will essentially be my battery throughout the show. I'm hoping that as long as they have energy, that will be enough to kind of puppet me through the performance.
Let's rewind to a little bit of your backstory. You grew up in Sarnia, Ontario.
I did.
And you came to Toronto as a teenager to do comedy. What was it about comedy that drew you? What did you want or feel you needed to express or be on the stage?
I don't think I knew it at the time, but at the time I think I just knew that I had done a little bit of improv and I liked it when I said things and people laughed. It's as an addict, I mean, instant gratification, right? Addicts love instant gratification, and there's almost no more pure version of that than you say something and then people immediately validate it by laughing. But yeah, as I've gotten older, I think what I like about comedy is that I've always felt unusual. Like growing up, I felt like just kind of an odd person, and like my brain didn't work the same way as everyone else, and I could kind of tell that in social situations, and it felt kind of isolating, and it makes you feel like sort of an anomaly, like you're not supposed to be there, which can lead you down some pretty negative thought paths. And what comedy has done for me is that I'm sort of able to take the unique way that my brain works and manipulate it into a product that people enjoy. And something about that makes me feel, not so alone.
And yet, I imagine that being in the world of comedy, it contributed in its way to your addiction. Tell me a little bit about, here you are, trying to make it in the big city, this young guy on stand-up comedy stages. Tell me the sort of the trajectory of drugs and alcohol and when they became a problem for you.
Yeah, I would say definitely they became a problem in the first couple years of doing comedy because you're in a bar every day, right? Everywhere you perform, there is alcohol. It's constantly around, and you want to support the venue, of course. And I started in 2010 when it was quite affordable to drink in Toronto, too, which I don't know how people today afford it. Thank God just economically that I'm sober. But yeah, I was a really hard worker as a young stand-up. I would go out and I would do probably 14 to 20 shows per week for the first few years that I was doing it, which is a lot of being in a bar and a lot of supporting the venue by buying drinks and etc. And you're young and it's fun and you feel like this is what you're supposed to be doing at that time in your life. You don't sort of realize that it's slowly getting away from you, right? That's kind of the insidious nature of addiction, I think, is that it changes you so incrementally over time that you don't really realize that it's happening until you're like hopelessly trapped inside of it.
I read somewhere that you got to a point where your standard pre-show ritual slash habit, I don't know, was a shot of Jameson, a beer, and a bump of Coke.
Yes, that was only when I was doing a late show, in fairness. Not at 8 p.m. 8 p.m., just the shot and the beer.
Okay.
But standard, any show, any time of day, I would have at least 2 drinks before I went on stage.
And what kind of effect would that have on your comedy? I mean, perhaps, or perhaps you thought it made you hilarious, but I mean, in reality.
I think it gave me a sort of functional diet version of confidence. When you're nervous to go out in front of people, especially if you feel, that maybe you're kind of an unusual person and that it's hard to relate to people. What alcohol sort of provides is this unifying energy where you're on the drug and I'm on the drug. So even if I feel like we're really different and I don't know if we'll be able to relate to each other, if we've both consumed this same thing that gives us the same energy, then we should be able to relate to each other. So it can be kind of effective in that way, but it is sort of a fake version of confidence that since I've gotten sober, I feel like I've achieved genuine confidence on stage, which I think has elevated my art. So at the time, I would say that I was getting away with being inebriated on stage for the most part, but that it was definitely a crutch that was artistically limiting.
Okay, so enter into that scenario a group of friends. They staged an intervention for you.
Yes,
What do you remember about that
I was
day?
intervened upon. I remember being frustrated that I fell for the ruse. Yeah, I've had 2 interventions in my life, was a soft and a hard intervention, and I didn't see either of them coming. It's pretty horrible having an intervention. I would say that. I mean, most people,
Because
it's all of the people that you care about the most sitting down and telling you everything that they think is wrong with you, and they are correct. So it's really difficult to deal with. It's a lot of people saying not very good things about you, and you kind of just have no rebuttal because it's all accurate, documented information. Everyone cried while they were reading their letters. It really is a horrible experience. There wasn't even snacks.
and yet it had the desired effect. It got you into rehab.
It absolutely did. They did something at a time when I was content to sit there and do nothing, and I'll be eternally grateful for that.
You actually joke about rehab in a comedy album that you released in 2023. I want to play a little clip from that album, which is called "The Pursuit of Haplessness."
I went to an all-male rehab facility, right? It was all dudes in there because I was like, well, I'm not sure if I'm gay or an addict, and this seems like the building. This is the facility that will answer that very specific question that I have.
That's Andrew Barr talking about rehab on your comedy album, The Pursuit of Haplessness. I know you've actually joked quite a bit about rehab. Can you give me another example of something that felt like material? I mean, stuff that was funny about going through something so hard?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, a bunch of funny stuff happened in rehab that I enjoyed. My favorite moment, my absolute favorite moment from rehab was we were talking. You talk a lot about what you'll do when you get out of rehab, right? It's mostly you planning. Rehab is mostly planning for leaving rehab and how you will stay sober once you have left the safety of the building. Because while you're there, you have no access to drugs or alcohol. So that's really kind of the easy part, right? It's everything afterwards that is hard, even though rehab felt really hard while I was there. So we were in a meeting and we were talking about the prospect of getting a sponsor, right? That's what a lot of guys do. They'll do the 12-step program and they'll get a sponsor. That's a very common and very effective route that people take for their sobriety. So we were learning about getting a sponsor, and one of the other guys raises his hand and he was like, is your sponsor allowed to be a chick? And the counselor was like, no. And he was like, why not? And then the counselor was like, because you're all perverts.
Oh.
And in a room of 23 men, no one protested that statement. Every single guy was like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm a pervert." Okay.
Was
Uh,
it so? I'm trying to imagine you in there going through all of it. Are you? You're clearly at some level wearing your stand-up comedy hat because you are making mental notes of oh, that'd be a funny
mhm.
joke, or but did that come right away? Did it take a while to reflect on it afterwards, or was it sort of evident right away that these are bits that I should be jotting down?
I think my rule for myself was that for the first 2 weeks, I wasn't allowed to write any stand up because I was like, you're just, you're supposed to be working on something else right now. And I felt like if I just was writing jokes the whole time, I could really like pass the month by without learning very much, or like it would be an easy way to kind of forget why I was there, to wrap myself up in the joke writing too much. So for the first 2 to 3 weeks, I think I was pretty hyper focused on just doing the work. It's expensive to go there, so I was like, I better get my money's worth out of this, and ideally come out the other side a pretty changed human being. But towards the end, um, when I had been there for a little bit, and I feel like settled into what my future was going to be, is when I let myself start to write a little bit. For the first couple of weeks, I didn't feel very funny either. I wasn't happy to be there. I had sort of been cornered into it. Like if it was left up to me, I wouldn't have gone. But
And yet you took it so seriously and you had a lot of wisdom and self-awareness, it sounds like, about doing it, if I can say this, doing it right or doing it with absolute commitment anyway.
yeah, a really good piece of advice I got from my friend Christoph before I went into rehab was he was like, I know you don't want to go, but you're going, right? You're going to be in there. So as long as you are in there and you've spent the money, listen to everything that they have to say, right? Like just keep an open mind about it, basically. Drink the Kool-Aid because you're going, so you might as well get 100% of the experience.
You're through rehab and you're back to doing stand-up and you're back in comedy bars, as you say, with, where there's alcohol flowing everywhere. That can't be an easy place to be as a recovering addict. What kinds of strategies did you have to implement to allow you to go back to work at comedy clubs and drinking establishments?
I just decided to wear it on my chest pretty much right away. I came out, I think the day after I got out of rehab, I went and did a show. A lot of my friends didn't know where I was, like a small group of them did, but a lot of people didn't know why I had been gone for like a month. And in comedy, it's also common to disappear for a month. People go on the road or whatever. So I just started telling people. I just was like, hey, how you been? Cool. I was in rehab. I let my peers know. I let the bartenders know. I just felt safer if people knew that I wasn't supposed to be doing it.
It's a good
And
offensive
if
strategy, so
yeah,
nobody's going to send a
basically,
shot up to the stage.
yeah, that for sure. And yeah, I just felt like, oh, it'll be really embarrassing to relapse if everyone knows that you're not supposed to be doing that. And of course, the bartenders in these comedy clubs are often, they're friends, they're people I've known for years, so they're not about to serve me a drink. But yeah, I just tried to own it as best I could and represent for the other addicts right away. I think as soon as I got out, I really felt like the need to give back a little bit. Like I felt very grateful to have had the experience that I had and the help that I had, and I felt bad for maybe having a negative impact on people's lives for a period of time. So I just decided that something helpful that I can do for other addicts is just to talk about it. Because for me, getting up and talking in front of a room full of people is a really easy thing to do because it's what I do all the time. And for most people, it's not easy to do that. So I try to just talk about addiction as much as I can. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, well, I was just going to say, has that changed? How has sobriety and having gone through rehab changed your comedy?
It's definitely more personal, a lot of the stuff that I do now, especially the stuff that I wrote right after rehab. I think before I went into rehab, I was still, even though I was on drugs and drunk all the time, I was a pretty good comedian. And I certainly wasn't the first one to also be drunk and on drugs all the time. But I think my material before I was sober was sort of well-crafted jokes, but jokes that anybody could tell. really. Like there was nothing about them that made them mine, I don't think. Anyone else could have told them and it would still be maybe just as funny. Whereas the stuff that I wrote about, rehab and my experiences with sobriety and some of, the stories from times when I was in active addiction are things that are personal to me. And I think that only I could tell, which feels good.
Thinking of the line between what you said earlier, that you feel true confidence now, not the sort of phony alcohol-induced confidence that you felt before. That's evident in how you describe your comedy. But tell me about what that feels like.
It feels good, I guess. Like, definitely when I got out of rehab, there was this fear that I would no longer be funny because I had been drinking as long as I had been doing comedy. So in my mind, there was the possibility that drugs and alcohol were this thing that unlocked the part of my brain that made me funny, and that without them, I wouldn't be able to sort of open up that door to the more artistic side of myself. And I really was quite concerned about that because doing stand-up is the only thing I know how to do, pretty much, at this point in my life. I've sort of painted myself into a corner. So the first few shows I did, I think my energy was a little strange on stage for sure because that fear was sort of ruling me at the time. But after, 5 or 6 shows, I did find that I was sharper than ever and more comfortable. And it was, really quite a satisfying thing to learn, like, oh, okay, no, I am the funny thing. And if anything, the drugs and alcohol, were slowing my brain down.
I'm so curious to see, and I'll tell audiences how they can go and see you putting your comedic powers to the test after 12 hours of running. Are you going to do you have a mantra or anything what's your strategy for running nonstop for 12 hours?
I try to zone out as much as I can. I try to forget that I'm running. I'm going to be listening to music most of the time on the treadmill. I won't even be talking to the comedians that are there, just because, having music and some kind of rhythm is so important. But
I bet knowing that you're doing this as a fundraiser too for the organization that helped you so much, that'll pull you through some of the moments when you want to slow down.
Yeah. That'll help. And I don't know. My attitude is it's just 12 hours. It's just one day.
Sure.
How bad can it be? I've done some pretty long training runs. I've run for 6 hours, and if you
can do 6, you can do 12.
I think so.
That's what I always say.
I did back-to-back marathons not that long after that. I've been running a lot.
Okay. You are ready.
Yeah. My attitude is it's just 12 hours, and that's a really short period of time in the grand scheme of your life.
True.
I'll make it.
True enough.
Yeah.
You've been through something hard for longer than that. Okay, you're live streaming this. For anyone in the world who wants to check in, tell our listeners where they can go to watch.
So the live stream will be through my Instagram channel and my YouTube channel, both of which are at andrewbarr comedy.
Thank you, by the way, for being here. So,
of course, thanks for having me.
So incredible, your story, and bravo and all the best for the big run.
Thank you.